Does God want a separation of church and state? Should Christians be voting biblical principles? Does it really matter who you vote for? Join Pastor Jerry Cook as he endeavors to answer these and many other questions over the next hour on Politics in the Pulpit. And now, Pastor Jerry Cook.
Good afternoon and welcome to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station, KHTS AM 1220 and FM 98.1. This is your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, back for another opportunity to do the two things that nobody really wants to do: religion and politics. People say they don't mix. I guess today they're going to mix. I just want to quickly brag, if I can. We just came off of a wonderful Independence Day weekend. Hopefully all of you folks had a great time out there for the 3-day weekend. I know that here in Santa Clarita, our custom in the morning is to be a part of the Santa Clarita Parade, and our church, Freedom's Way Baptist Church, came in first place for religious float. We're actually very glad about that. We got it last year as well. However, a huge shout out to the Republican club out here that took the #1 spot overall, and they had a great float. They had Theodore Roosevelt. They had an individual acting out Theodore Roosevelt. They had a deer and tree and all kinds of things. And this year was all about celebrating the outdoors, open spaces, things of that nature. And so when they judge floats here, they judge according to the theme. It doesn't matter how opulent your float is. If it doesn't connect to the theme, then you're not going to get judged very well. So anyway, congratulations to both the Republicans as well as to the wonderful folks there at Freedom's Way and Lighthouse Christian Academy. Well, we are in the middle of a heat wave. Today is the last day, according to the weather reports, that it's supposed to be kind of crescendoing. And so we're supposed to slowly and appreciably go down for the next few days. Hopefully you folks have enjoyed yourself out there for the last 3 days or so and back to work and, basically going back to reality. One of the things that, of course, is completely on the go is election season. And we are, there's so much news right now about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, actually more about Joe Biden than Donald Trump. And what's interesting is everyone gets excited about the federal elections. And don't get me wrong, I am excited about federal elections. I cannot wait to vote for Donald Trump and vote against Joe Biden or whoever else the Democratic Party throws in there between now and November 4th. So there's a lot of stuff we can talk about, and in the very last 7 or 8 minutes of the show today, we're going to get into a few of those things that's been plaguing Joe Biden ever since that disastrous debate performance from a couple of weeks ago, which he seems to not being able to get away from. But while federal elections are important, and yes, it's important to have Senate seats and congressional seats and assembly seats, I really believe that Republicans have, over the past 50 years, neglected local elections. The Democrats have been very faithful about that. But we as Republicans are kind of late to the game. And so I think really COVID is what awakened many of us to the importance of people that are on our school board, that are on our city council, that are in our water board. It's so important that those local representatives represent the will of the people of that community. And today, I have the pleasure of introducing to many of you, some of you know Dr. Akash Ahuja, but Dr. Akash is no stranger to KHTS. I've interviewed him for the morning show just a couple of weeks ago. But Dr. Akash Ahuja is running for the Hart School Board here in Santa Clarita. Dr. Akash, welcome to Politics in the Pulpit.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
That is a big button, Dr. Akash. Explain that.
The bigger the commitment, bigger the passion, bigger eagerness to run for the Hart School Board, bigger the button.
The bigger the button. I'm sensing an accent, so let's talk a little bit about your biography, Dr. Akash. Obviously, you're not from Compton.
No, I come slightly far away. It's kind of like, you take a ride from Campton and you go to LAX and then you fly 8,000 miles away to the country of India.
Yeah.
So I come from the capital of India, New Delhi. And what accent are you talking about?
No, actually, it sounds very Canadian. No. So obviously, you're from India.
Yes.
And what year did you lawfully immigrated to the United States? What year was that?
I came here in 2001, a few months before the very uneventful, tragic event of 9/11.
So what was your impetus, Dr. Akash? I mean, you were born in India. All of your family, for the most part, are in India. What was the driving force to say, I want to come to America?
Right. So first thing first, yes, my dad still lives in India. My mom, actually, a couple of years ago, she passed away, but she was in India. I have one sister in India, and a niece, and that's basically my immediate family in India. I live here in Santa Clarita with my wife and two kids, but we'll talk about them. So the question was, what brought me?
Yeah,
to US,
what was the desire as a young Indian there in India to say, I want to come to America?
Ever since I was in my medical school, and when I chose to become a psychiatrist, I guess I was in my third year of med school in New Delhi. At that time, psychiatry was not that big a deal in India, and a lot of taboo was there in terms of going to a psychiatrist. So I thought that it would be very nice if I can go to United States and do my post graduation here, which is known as MD, and that's what drove me to come here. And I flew here and came here legally, as you mentioned. And I joined my psychiatry residency in the state of Minnesota. Minnesota the nice. And
You betcha.
you betcha, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful state, state of 10,000 lakes, but it
Yep.
was just too cold for me.
Not good for someone from where you're from.
Yeah. So, but I had a great training. It was a 4-year residency program, and I finished that. And in 2007, actually, I migrated to California, and made the first place I came actually was in Central California, in Morro Bay, a beautiful place.
Oh, beautiful. Los Osos area.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And since 2014, actually, I have been living in Santa Clarita now with my wife and two kids.
And two kids. So we fast forward. You're in Santa Clarita. We've gone through COVID for almost 3 years. Obviously, a lot of things took place during COVID. The average Republican conservative, if you will, just to use political terms, woke up, if you will, to what's happening within our schools. And now you are here today, and you are running for the Hart School Board here in Santa Clarita.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Akash, explain to our listeners why you feel you want to run for that school board position.
Absolutely. First of all, it's a privilege. It's a privilege, and I thank not only Santa Clarita, I thank this great country that I have this privilege that I can run here for the local election. So thank you. Jerry, I believe that education is the pillar of a society. With a good education, we can expect the society to rise up. Whether it's the city, whether it's the community, whether it's the country, good education is an extreme must to have. And I'm passionate, and I want to make sure that our kids get the best possible education. I have two kids in our district. My daughter is going to join 7th grade, and my son will be in the 9th grade, and they both are in the Hart School Board. And if you just notice around us, especially after the COVID, the kids nowadays are facing so many challenges which fortunately you and me didn't have to. The scores, the test scores, the grades are on decline. California is doing an extremely poor job in that. Social media and cell phone use is on the rise. And unfortunately, smart kids are being replaced by smartphones. Mm-hmm. And I genuinely believe that I'm a psychiatrist now, as I just mentioned. I believe that as a psychiatrist and as a parent and as a solution-oriented, logical person who can try to bring the people together, I can make a huge difference in terms of raising the standard of the education and helping our kids to navigate through these mental health challenges, which have kind of hindered their growth in terms of not only academic advancement, but also in terms of not being able to cope up with the day-to-day living situation, living problems. I think I can make a huge difference, and I'm determined to do a great job as a Hart School Board member.
Well, one of the things that has plagued the Hart School Board over the last couple of years, there's been some, some uprisings, some controversies, some debates, and I wanted to get your take on some of these controversies that
Sure.
have kind of manifested themselves.
Right.
One of those was the Hart mascot.
Yes.
And so the Hart mascot has been a Native American image since the school's origin in 1945. So it's been, almost 80 years.
Yep.
And so, and it's been a Native American. And then there was this uprising of what I call the tyranny of the minority,
Right.
who are the loudest in the group. And starting in 2020, 2021, they started kind of making noise about the mascot, and we need to change the mascot. The mascot is racist. But yet nobody ever thought that it was racist until this tyranny of the minority said it was racist. I never thought it was racist. I know students from my church who went there. They never gave that any thought. What are your thoughts about the Hart mascot being a Native American, and would you support it changing to maybe like a hawk? I think that's the conversation that they're having.
Right. I think recently they voted that it would be a hawk now.
Yeah.
Look, I did a lot of research on this particular topic, and to get my facts right, because it's very essential to get things right that way. I think in 2021, few students, I think 2 or 3 students, they made a petition that they were not agreeing with the current Hart mascot, and they wanted to make a change. And I understand. Look, people have different views. And I'm not judging them. I'm sure that they were passionate and they didn't like it. They didn't approve it. Having said that, what happened after that was kind of interesting and shocking at the same time. The school decided that there should be a survey, and they did a survey for all the staff members and all the students of the Hart board. Now I can imagine that those staff and those students will be very passionate about what they believe in, because to be honest, it was connected to them more so than you and me. Mm-hmm. I didn't go to the Hart school, so I would appreciate what the people connected to that school would think.
Sure.
Both surveys, based upon my understanding, the staff as well as the student survey, a big majority of them chose that the Hart mascot should stay. Now, if that was the case, then I don't know why then this matter went actually to the Hart School Board, and then I believe the result was 4-1. Only one Hart board member voted in favor of keeping it, and the other 4 voted not to keep it. Look, there will always be cases where some people will be upset about certain things, and as an elected board official, it is your job to make sure that you listen to everybody, you understand everybody's point of view. But at the same time, we are voted in by the public, by the people, and we have to look at the will of the people. In my opinion, the will of the people was to keep the mascot, and they chose not to. In my opinion, it was a wrong decision they made.
Yeah, and it goes back to the way I described it, Dr. Akash. And again, these are my words, not yours. The tyranny of the minority, where you have a small, very vocal minority that is always yelling about something. Either something is racist, or something is sexist, or something is, whatever. And then what happens is the school board, whoever is on the school board at the time, react to that tyranny of the minority, and then make a snap decision not based on any data or rationale, but only to kind of placate the loud noisemakers in that crowd.
See, Jerry, I agree with you. I think it is very important for any board member, and let's say if I become a board member, hopefully, then it's good to listen to people, but it's not good to appease people.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. When you listen to people, listen carefully, you look at the facts, you look at the history, you look at the whole scenario, and make a judgment based upon your belief and also the belief of the majority. Having said that, I think in this case, seems like that it was more of an appeasement situation. And when you start appeasing people, then you are bound to make irrational and wrong decisions for the community.
Once you give them an inch, they're going to ask for a foot, and after a foot, they're going to ask for the whole body. And so I agree with you completely on that. Joining us in studio, not calling in like some of these other guests, but Dr. Akash Ahuja, who's running for the Hart School Board. He, of course, wants your vote. I believe he would be a vote for sanity and common sense, so I would encourage you to look at his site. Dr. Akash, would you quickly, before we get into this story about the LAUSD potential phone ban on school sites, would you give folks your information about where they could find your biography, where they can donate, where they can help you?
Absolutely, thank you. And yes, we are a common sense campaign. I'm at the website. My website is www.draforheart.com. I'll spell it. So www.heart, HART.com. I'm also on the Facebook page, which is Dr. Akash Ahuja for Hart School Board. You can please go to the website, read about it. You have any questions, connect with us. And yes, if possible, if you can spare some money, it would be very helpful for the campaign. We'll rather have 1,000 people donate $10 than 10 people donating $1,000.
Sure.
Thank you.
I know that everyone's strapped for money nowadays, cost of groceries, the cost of gas, the cost of insurance.
Yes.
But I do think it's important to get behind some of these local races, much like yourself, Dr. Akash, to make sure that we have voices of sanity and common sense on our school board. Well, I think it's interesting. A few weeks ago, when I heard the story on the news that the LAUSD, which of course nothing really good happens within the LAUSD, right? Usually it's a lot of insane stuff and weird things that come down. But it was just kind of refreshing to hear something that made sense.
Yes.
Because as a pastor, as a parent, I see the benefits of a cell phone. Obviously, there are good things.
Yes.
My emails, everything's on my cell phone.
Yes.
But I also understand, like cigarettes or beer or anything, it can become addictive.
Yes, absolutely.
And so the LAUSD has come out with a proposal. It's yet to be passed, and I think the Hart School Board is also taking up such a proposal to possibly ban the usage of cell phones while
In school.
or during school hours. And I think it's important for folks to know, especially if you're voting for Hart School Board this November, that Dr. Akash was way ahead of the game when it came to this phone ban for school hours. That the LAUSD, I think, must have a bug in Dr. Akash's home and must have been had a bug in his computer, because Dr. Akash has written several editorials for The Signal right here in Santa Clarita. One of the first ones was back in January of 2023, where you talked about the epidemic of TikTok
Yes.
on our kids.
Yes.
And you had mentioned several other things as well. You talked about social media poisoning our kids, which
Yes.
was February of that same year, 2023. You talked about smartphones versus smart kids in April of that year. You talked about please restrict cell phones in schools.
Yes.
And this was March 30th of last year.
Yes.
And you also have something here called Unraveling the Connection Between TikTok and Teen Mental Health.
Yes.
So obviously the LASD is late in the game, but Dr. Akash was ahead of the game.
Yes, luckily that was the case. That I knew it being a psychiatrist, being a mental health expert. I knew that, look, using technology is always okay, but technology should be our slave. We should not be the slave of technology. I always say that. And especially now when the kids are using the cell phone for different social media platforms where their whole life revolves around the Instagram posts and the YouTube reels, it basically is based upon getting more and more likes to get more and more attention among the virtual friends. So the kids are losing the art of talking to each other, making good friends. A lot of time is going into these kind of things and not into their academics, and the family time is getting compromised. We basically are going backwards in terms of being a human, losing the touch of talking. So that's why I started saying that I was writing the articles, I was going to the school board meetings every 2 weeks, and I was standing by myself. And I think I'm so glad that slowly and steadily the Hard School Board recognized that this was important, and they did restricted the cell phone in the junior high schools few months ago.
Yeah.
And I heard from people policy is going great. There were some reservations a lot of parents had, but it has gone very well. Kids are now talking to each other again.
Yeah, what a novelty.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so glad that LAUSD is also considering to do that. And I'm hoping that when I am there on the board, I will also again talk to the parents. For every single policy, one has to involve the parents and the teachers and everybody and work with the other board members. But yes, the idea is to restrict the cell phone usage even in the high schools so that kids can focus on their education, on the real extracurricular activities, and become solid, resilient American citizens.
I want to just quickly, we'll talk about something else in just a minute, but I want to just dwell on this cell phone issue because it's kind of a semi-passion for me. And I have seen a table full of teenagers, all on their cell phones, and none of them talking to each other. Or maybe they are talking to each other, Dr. Akash, but they're texting each other.
Yes.
Instead of using the words
Yes.
that could come from their mouth.
Yes.
And that should be a concern for parents.
Yes.
That should be a concern for educators.
Yes.
And frankly, that should be a concern for the continuation of a healthy society.
100%.
Because as much of a blessing these cell phones are, they can be, as we mentioned earlier, addictive, just like anything can be addictive.
Yep.
And can you, as a psychologist, maybe explain a little bit about the dopamine intake and how that just affects the mind?
Right.
And that rush needs to happen from time to time, and that's why the cell phones can be a problem.
Yes. So, Jerry, I'm a psychiatrist, not psychologist.
Forgive me.
No worries.
It's one of those P words.
That is correct. So, yes. So, look, let's put it simply. Whenever dopamine is the fun hormone, dopamine is the fun thing. Right now, I'm talking to you. I'm enjoying the conversation. My dopamine in my brain, if somebody does an MRI or a PET scan, they can see that the dopamine is going up.
Yeah.
When you go home, you sit with your family, and if you are doing great, you are enjoying great food, your dopamine can go up to 9 or 8, which is great. Now, when kids are on cell phones and they are using the Facebook or Instagram, their dopamine goes up when they see that somebody has liked their image, or somebody has said something good about them, or they have heard a comment. The problem is that dopamine sometimes from the range of 1 to 10 can go up to 20, 30 or 40, which is not natural. The problem with that is when they see that nobody is liking that, then it can crash down from 40 to 1. Then they get a like again. It can go back again to 40. Then it can crash again to like a 0 or a 1. So right now, sitting for next 15, 20 minutes, and you are being extremely happy, extremely sad, extremely happy, extremely sad. What a miserable life you will be having.
And how that has an effect on your emotion overall.
Yes, so you will basically on an emotional roller coaster. You will be feeling sad and happy and sad and happy. And that can lead to a lot of anxiety, that can lead to depression, that can lead to lower self-esteem. People don't get good sleep, and you don't make good, valuable relationships with your family, with your friends. You don't go out. You are basically living in this virtual world. Your scores get affected, and essentially, if you look at the statistics, these kids end up not doing very well in their school. They do not go to the college. They just don't reach their potential best, which is such a sad situation for our community and the country. I'll do whatever I can do to make a change.
If you're just joining us here on Politics in the Pulpit, we're talking to Dr. Akash Ahuja, who's running for the Hart School Board. Of course, he is wanting your vote this November 4th. November 5th, excuse me. And he is not advocating the banning of cell phones. He is advocating the non-usage of them during school hours, which, Lord willing, does go into effect across the board here, not just in Santa Clarita, but across the state. However, when we're talking about banning, one of the big things across the country, especially with school boards and parents and the back and forth between parents and school board, is this book ban thing.
Right.
And you're not advocating for the banning of the cell phone, and you're not really of any book.
Absolutely not.
But you do believe that books within our school libraries should be age appropriate.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. We'll talk about books in 15 seconds. Look, when we take our kids to the movies, don't we see that what rating the movie has? I mean, if it's R-rated, it's under 13, it's PG-13 and whatever.
And we don't take them to see an X one,
we
right?
don't. Exactly. We do it for the obvious reasons. Similarly, I think books are an extremely important tool. I advocate that people should read books. Books are, as some nice wise man has said, books are a man's best friend. Having said that, books should be age appropriate, like anything else. So if a book literally has some pornography, whether it's a soft pornography, some images or things like that, that should not be age appropriate for a 10-year-old or 11-year-old. It doesn't make sense. You will do more harm than helping the kids. So I'm absolutely against banning any books, but I want the books to be absolutely age appropriate so that kids are there in the school to get great education for math and science and art and literature and history.
So let me ask you this question, Dr. Kosh, because I'm sure this could happen within our schools. Let's say that there is a policy that the school put out age-appropriate material for the students. But let's say that the student is 9 years old, 10 years old, and they want to see one of these books that are not age-appropriate for them, but the teacher secretly allows it.
Okay.
And this is going to then move right into the next topic, which is parental notification.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of
is that once I am on the board, you work with the current board members, you work in the current policies, and you make sure, first of all, that those books are not accessible to those kids. You talk to the teachers also. I mean, look, I respect teachers a lot. I think teachers are a great gateway to a country's success. So a lot of bad things happen when there is a miscommunication. And I genuinely believe that if you sit and talk to different people who are involved in our kids' education, 99% of the times things get sorted out.
Yeah.
So my answer will be that yes, this is absolutely inappropriate. Appropriate action should be taken, but the attempt should be made that this does not happen, and so you be proactive and not reactive on this.
So again, just to clarify, Dr. Akash Ahuja, who is running for Hart School Board, does not want to take a bunch of books, put them in a big pile, and throw kerosene on it, and then throw a lighter at it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
We just want to make sure that books are age appropriate.
Yes.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to me that it's really the other side. And I'm not saying that it's the other side that always ends up banning books. And we'll talk more about that in a second. We have our final segment coming up here. We're coming to a hard break, Dr. Akash. The next section that I want to talk about, the next segment, is about parental notification.
Yes.
There is a bill right now sitting on the governor's desk called AB 1955
Yep.
that is going to have a broad brush effect on the entire state of California should Gavin Newsom. We shall see if he does, but obviously the Hart Board had an issue about parental notification just a few months ago. We'll get into that when we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit, talking to Dr. Akash Ahuja, who is running for Hart School Board. Back in a moment. Dr. Akash, one of the big issues that is facing our state as a whole, not just our county, but our state, is this notion of parental notification.
Yes.
This is a touchy issue, and I know that there are passionate views on both sides of this. I really only believe, and this is just my view, I really only believe there's one right view on this. But there's a bill sitting on the governor's desk. It's Assembly Bill 1955, and that bill, if signed by our governor, would basically mandate that that parents not have any notification of what is happening with their children at school,
Yes.
that it would be considered a privacy matter.
Yes.
And all I can say to you, Dr. Akash, I guess I'm a little old-fashioned. When I was a kid, I didn't have privacy. My dad, my mom could come into the room. They could check anything they wanted. I just didn't have privacy. I was a kid, you know. And it's amazing how we've elevated the status of these young kids to almost adulthood.
Yes.
So what is your take on this whole parental notification issue that might just be statewide, not just county, statewide, should the governor sign this into law?
Jerry, let me answer that question by saying that I think people have made this issue very complicated. It actually is not a complicated issue.
Explain it, Dr. Akash.
I will try to.
This is why you're a psychiatrist.
Yes, absolutely.
Not a psychologist, by
yes,
the way.
That's correct.
That's like beneath you.
No, that is beneath anybody.
okay.
But psychiatrist is an MD and
Okay,
psychologist
I
is
got
a
it.
yeah. So why this issue should not be complicated? Look, society has changed. Yes, for last 50,000 years, people have been taking care of their children. 50 years ago or 75 years ago when you were young, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
I'm so well preserved.
No,
Actually, I'm
we are
not as old.
similar
I'm
age.
not as old as Joe, but
Look, yes, the society has changed, but one thing has never changed, and I don't see that changing in the near future, that parents will always remain parents. Parents are the one who give birth to their child. Parents are the one who take care of their child. It's as simple as that. When I drop my kid to the school, my idea is that he is going to get good education. The school is going to keep him safe, and he will slowly and steadily learn good math, good values, good history, and he will become a good solid citizen and have a good future. Tell me, how is that different for any Democratic or a Republican parent? I believe it's the same. Which parent will say that what I just said is not correct? I mean, this is a very basic thing. This is what parents do. Having said that, parents' job or parents being parents do not end at the school boundary. Kids remain kids in the school. They become students in the school. They have to follow the rules of the schools, yes, but they are still the kids of their parents.
yeah.
If you are depriving parents from getting any notification about anything, I don't understand the logic of that. You are basically kind of cutting the society. You are kind of dividing them. It doesn't make logical sense to me. The research, if you look at objective data, the families which are well connected, the families which are involved in their parents' education, in their students' day-to-day activity in school, what is going on, those students do much better in terms of their grades, in terms of their behavior in school and at home, in terms of how they handle the life situations, in terms of what they become in their life later on. It's very simple. And I think, again, if you want to make it complicated, then you will cater to few people's concerns. And I'm not saying the concerns are not valid. The concerns can be valid, absolutely. But when you start appeasing a very small number of people, and make a policy and kind of throw it on every other person, there is a problem.
Yeah.
So the answer is, I hope I have answered that this situation should not be that complicated. If something goes on with the kids, the parents should be informed. Now, how, when, in some typical situations, I understand, and that there can be discussion on that. Because look, every single kid, if their race, religion, cultural background, sexual orientation, every kid is equally important. But the key is equally important. Nobody is less, nobody is more. You make the policy which will benefit everybody and not only a few people who are making a lot of noise.
Well, I think that's well said, Dr. Akash, and I'll just kind of throw it back here to you said I was like 85 years old. I remember when I was at a private school when I was growing up. It was a Baptist school, and it was a private school that you had to be either part of that church or a church somewhere, and that's how you got into this school. Well, I remember that the nurse at the school could not even give me an aspirin until they first informed or got the permission from my parents. Or, in the least, my parents had to write off a medical form at the beginning of the school year saying that you can treat my kid for A, B, C, and D, even if you can't get a hold of me. I remember sitting in the office and my mom signing that.
Right.
And it's amazing to me that we've gone so far from that. We're something as basic as an aspirin, and now you can just do whatever, and supposedly it's a privacy issue, and parents shouldn't know about it. But I'm glad that you have spoken to that issue, and I think you've made yourself clear, and I think there's some clarity on that issue. Dr. Akash, as we come to the end of the program today, again, give your information about where folks can find you on the web and where folks can donate to your desire to run for Heart School Board.
Thank you so much. My Facebook page is Dr. Akash Ahuja for Heart School Board. Please look at it. And my website is www.doctor, so which is DR, letter A, number 4, heart, HART.com.
Don't forget, folks, November 5th is the election. Ballots are going to be dropping by the beginning of October, so you can vote early, and I would encourage you to do that. Let me just also mention, just for our leftists that might be listening, Dr. Akash is a Hindu. I am a Christian, and in about 2 weeks, I'm going to have an atheist on the show.
Fantastic.
So all I can say is, those of you leftists that like to leave comments that are stupid, obviously you don't know what you're talking about. So anyway, good to have you on, Dr. Akash. Thanks for listening.
What a pleasure. What a pleasure.
Thanks for listening into Politics in the Pulpit. We'll catch you next week here on your hometown station. Take care.